After Roger Waters left, a question kept circling in my head. Did Jon Carin rebuild Pink Floyd after the split? I didn't want a tidy myth. I wanted the messy truth, the late nights, the studio air, the things said out loud and the things left unsaid. The deeper I dug, the more one through line emerged. In the fragile years after the breakup, Jon Carin wasn't just another keyboard player. He was part architect, part glue, part ghost. He once described those early days with a blunt honesty that stopped me cold. When I was asked to work on A Momentary Lapse of Reason, you must understand 4 things. The band Pink Floyd didn't exist. I wasn't working on it as a Pink Floyd record because it wasn't Pink Floyd yet. Pink Floyd wasn't there. Then he added, there were no songs at all. We made them up or helped facilitate extremely rough ideas. And a few years later, it was similar. But now Rick and Nick were part of the process too. Rick and I were extremely close friends. That closeness matters, because the heart of this story isn't about replacing anyone. It's about how the pieces actually fit together. On paper, A Momentary Lapse of Reason proved the band could go on. In reality, it was a delicate construction. Carin didn't just perform, he built atmosphere and shape. And even as the next chapter took form, Rick Wright was finding his footing again, rediscovering what he wanted Pink Floyd to sound like. By the time the band was heading toward the division bell, the hope inside that floating studio was that the music might breathe like it used to. Rick said something I keep returning to. I think we could have gone further towards making a Floyd album as we used to, more thematic, with all the music having a logical link. That's something I think a lot of the band's fans like. It was something I wanted to achieve with my own record. He could still hear himself inside the music. There are a lot of other aspects of the record that I was very happy about, such as being able to contribute to the writing. My influence can be heard on tracks like Marooned and Cluster 1. Those were the kind of things that I gave to Floyd in the past, and it was good that they were now getting used again. In the same era, he also described the process from inside the room. Partly because I was involved with it a lot more, Nick, myself, and Dave were involved right from the beginning, and out of that, the tracks came. It's easy to forget how fragile that balance was. 3 musicians trying to sound like themselves again, while the world waited for proof. And yet, Carin's memories draw a more complicated line through those sessions. At the time of Division Bell, Rick and I were really hoping it would be a record like Wish You Were Here. Maybe 4 extended songs. As Division Bell progressed, the songs got shorter and poppier, and Rick completely lost interest and was quite upset at how it was turning out, and I was left to do most of the keyboards. He even said, with a weary kind of irony, the irony that I completely agreed with Rick was not lost on me. But with a looming deadline because of the tour that was booked, that is how it went. That's where the story sharpens. Who actually played what? Carin has been direct about specifics. I played all of the piano on Division Bell. I play the piano on High Hopes, A Great Day for Freedom, Lost for Words, Marooned, the wah-wah Wurlitzer piano on What Do You Want From Me? Pretty much the bulk of the synths on the record. B3 on Keep Talking, Lost for Words, What Do You Want From Me? Marooned, A Great Day for Freedom, etc. He wasn't boasting. He sounded tired of being invisible. And just for the record, I adored Rick and loved his playing. But sorry, that's me on much of Division Bell, and the fact that the credits were completely wrong on top of having slaved away on it for a year is quite insulting to me, despite asking many times for them to be corrected over the past 30 years. And it would be very insulting to you if you were in my shoes. I hope this helps to clarify things. It's tempting to turn that into a verdict, but then you hear the other voices from inside the band, and the picture gets more human. David Gilmour remembered the spark of working together again. I don't like that feeling of frustration when you don't quite have the words to say what you want to say. What was really nice about the recording of this record was that Rick and Nick and I came together and worked well as a unit in a way that we hadn't done for many, many years. You can feel the relief in that line, the sense that, after so long apart, the engine finally turned over. And Rick himself admitted the emotional turbulence of his position. He said, "It came very close to a point where I wasn't going to do the album because I didn't feel that what we'd agreed was fair." In the same breath, he stood up for his musical presence. "It was fulfilling because I wrote on it, and I wrote with Dave on it, and I sang on it. I basically hadn't really sung for 20 years, and did one take, and Bob Ezrin said, 'Okay, that's it,' which I couldn't believe. There's dignity in that. A man trying to be heard, even as the ground under his feet kept shifting." Carin also talked about the nuts and bolts. The division bell was made exactly the same way as a momentary lapse of reason. The tracks were cut to click tracks and slave to MIDI, etc., with Mac computers. The only real sonic difference is because I asked Phil Taylor to let me ransack the equipment warehouse to have access to the 70s keyboards arsenal. So I dragged the Selena, Minimoog, Farfisa, etc. to the boat and used those quite a bit. If you've ever wondered why the album feels both modern and unmistakably Floyd, that's part of it. The marriage of precision and vintage soul. But there's another thread that matters. While the division bell was still fresh, Rick's heart was already reaching for something deeply personal. He said, "During the recording of Division Bell, I decided I wanted to make my own record. I formulated some of the ideas actually recording Division Bell, and I actually intended to start writing it when we were on the road touring Division Bell. But that was practically impossible. But as soon as I came off the road, because I'd been playing for 6 months, I was raring to go, as the expression goes." That hints at why he might have disengaged at times, not from the band, but from a version of the band that didn't quite align with the album he heard in his own head. Years later, there was a quiet reckoning about how Rick was seen from the outside. He has been underestimated by the public, by the media, and by us at times, I hate to say. I didn't necessarily always give him his proper due, came the admission. People have very different attitudes to the way they work, and we can become very judgmental and think someone is not quite pulling his weight enough, without realizing that theirs is a different weight to pull. That humility reframes the whole era, not as a simple matter of who played which chord, but as a lesson in how different temperaments carry different parts of the same load.